How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Good to be here again.
Awesome. Awesome. And Nolan, I know last time we talked about like the B2B lead gen on LinkedIn and a lot of like, mistakes people are making, and also, some of the tools that you're working on and the tools that you are using. So today I want to talk about, what are some mistakes people are still seeing? Because, on my end, I'm still seeing people sending like spam messages. I'm still seeing people sending like email copy pasted messages, right? So and then there's some people out there, I guess, preaching or teaching these tactics that are I don't think they work. So that's what I want to talk about today with you. Some of the mistakes that you see people are making, and also what can we do. So with that, Megan, before we jump into that, let us know. So what do you do? For people who don't know you, what do you do as a business? How can people find you?
Right. So I do two things. I run an agency called Clemmons.io that specializes in marketing, B2B lead generation and marketing automation. And then I also run a lead generation software called rufasta. And we have a suite of sales prospecting tools that users use to help find contact information and send cold outreach emails to prospects to drive their sales pipeline.
Awesome.
So those are two.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So those are two things that I'm preoccupied, and so a lot of based on what I do, I see what other people in the industry in our space are doing, what they could be doing. I see a lot of people new that get started and make some what I would consider rookie mistakes. Although a lot of marketing in general or sales, it's trial and error until that experience. So when we could go through a few tips to help people avoid that.
Yep. Yeah. Let's jump into that. So I think before we kind of like turned on the camera, you were mentioning you had some like an interesting story about like a copywriting incident, I guess. So yeah, tell us about that, because that keeps coming back up. People how they are writing copy or copy pasting, I guess.
Yes. So and actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Because we are live on LinkedIn, and there's some Facebook group that I saw this in. I can't remember the gentleman's name. Otherwise, I want to give him credit because it's amazing. He's actually pointing out and some people on LinkedIn, I figured out if you put an emoji in front of your first name, some of these sketchy tools that are out there, they interpret that emoji as that person's name. So then someone posted a screenshot and the names weren't blurred out, which some people don't like. I don't necessarily like to do that. I tried blurring them out and then I forget to blur out part of their names, but because we're analyzing the copy, not the person. But in this case, someone had a beer emoji in the first name, and then in the message it said, "Hey, beer emoji." as the first one. So it's actually a neat trick that if you want to receive less spam, or if you want to tell if something's automated, put an emoji in your name on LinkedIn and see what. And I've had this happen before because the way my company was formatted, the name of it for the LinkedIn page was formatted before. Whenever people would put that into copy, it wouldn't make sense. So it's kind of it was almost off-putting that they put it like that. So that's so I'll start off with the first mistake. So all these automation tools, they have ways that you can insert fields, first name, company name, and some parts. So be careful if you're going to do that. You need to go basically one by one. But when I say that, it's all in a sheet beforehand, a CSV file. That's where all the information is. And so you have to go through that and make sure that everything's accurate. And then there's things like you wouldn't want to say, how are things at iSocialU Inc.?
Yeah.
You want to say that in a conversation. So you have to come up with a casual abbreviation, if you will, in those cases. So that's the first mistake, is making sure that that's not squared away. And a human has to inspect that. It's not, there's all the machine learning and AI in the world. It can't prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
if there's faulty data somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first mistake. And then the
Got it.
second mistake, this is more uh, geared towards sales in general, and how you can, what, especially particularly for cold emailing and cold calling, there's a certain decorum that you need to have. And so I've received yet another solicitation for lead generation services,
Mm.
and I'll go through that. I mean, if I'll go through and read that. So it
So
starts off.
was that through email, or someone sent you a message or a direct message or a private message on LinkedIn, or was it through like email?
Well, this is email, and I'll do that emoji thing and then change, because I have it so that you need my email to send me a connection request. Which, if they're a lead generation expert, it shouldn't be a problem to find my email address. But so
Yep.
I'll turn that off and put the emoji there to try and catch. And we're not trying to punish people. We're just trying to say, hey, you shouldn't do this, because I have a course that I launched a few years ago on lead generation, and for one thing, they're using the first point of contact. They're trying to use LinkedIn, which doesn't make sense to me. I'm all in favor of multi-channel cadences. You send them an email. If they open an email but don't reply, call them. Try social media. Try show up to their office. Although these days that's not happening much. Or mail them something. People don't usually expect to see things in the mail, but this one, the subject line is, Nolan, I'll be quick, promise.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and then it says, hi, Nolan, I'll cut right. So the two problems here. It's great to be quick. That's why we have elevator pitches. It's great to be quick in sales and business, so to be respectful of people's time, but don't overemphasize quickness. Hey, it'll be quick. I mean, as opposed to what? It'll be long. So you don't want it. That comes down to psychology.
It doesn't make sense.
You don't want. You don't. Just tell me what you do. So at such and such company, we reach out, qualify your prospects, and book sales calls. So the order is wrong.
Yeah.
What should be first?
Well, instead of them focusing on them, it should be focusing on you.
Well, yeah, that's true. And part of that would be they need to qualify prospects. If they're reaching out to me, they didn't qualify.
Yes.
If they're not qualifying their own lead generation efforts, how can they do that for a client?
So do you think they're just kind of like, they bought a list, or they scraped like a bunch of emails and now just like spamming them like one template, the same message? Do you think that's what's going on?
Yes, they're not doing, and this can be the third mistake. They're not doing enough segmentation. Now, they might argue that they are, because they say, we work especially with CEOs in the marketing and advertising industry, which is true somewhat. It's like, so, okay, that's accurate, but that's what they're, but they need to subdivide it even further. They need to find out, say, this person is an agency that provides services that we don't. So they need to make sure so that you're not reaching out to doing lead generation for other lead generation agencies, kind of a lead generation inception. So that's something that they need to improve on. And then the other thing was they say we're at a 75% discount on our competitors. Well, that's not a discount. That just means you're cheap. Hey, use us. We're cheaper. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily work, particularly for enterprise, particularly for enterprise sales. So that's another thing. I think thing to stay away from. So as far as what people can do to improve it is pay attention to your subject line, and it could be, instead of saying, Nolan, it'll be quick, just tell me what you do. Say, Nolan, do you want more leads? Now, some people, there's probably just a wide onslaught of people selling lead generation services, so maybe they know it won't get opened. Maybe they be vague, that people will open it. Well, you know, if you're going to have the subject line like that, then at least in the first sentence after the greeting, say what or make it about me.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
try to
By the
double,
way,
because go ahead.
what was their subject line? Because you
It,
did
it,
open the email.
yeah, so it was Nolan. It'll be quick, promise.
I got you. Okay, so that's what
And
they.
the other permutation, and it works. I mean, I can say I don't like it, but if it works, it works. Is
Yeah.
quick question lowercase.
Mm.
You know, so it works if people haven't, or maybe they done it before, so that there's a pattern in their head. There's a repetition pattern in the recipient's head. Oh, I better open it.
Yeah,
And then the other thing is the first couple of sentences, because before I open that, you can see a preview of the email. So put something either in the subject line or in the first couple of sentences. Make it about why you're reaching out to them, or what you're offering, why you want them to respond. And the other thing is, why do we need an appointment?
Yep.
So
I mean, that goes back to they didn't really like qualify you. Are you in the market looking for what they provide? Right. That's a big question, and a lot of like cold outreach, it just kind of bypasses that. By the way, on this topic, do you know, or can you think of anyone who is doing the cold outreach as a good example? So if I was to ask you, can you think of anyone out there who is doing the cold outreach that we can go and learn from?
Well, it goes back a few years ago. Probably the best cold email I ever did was Anders Fredriksson, and at the time, this was a company called ProLeads, and then they became Hexa. Then they got bought out by Works, and then I think that company became acquired. So it became almost kind of a lost technology that I miss, because it was great. Because what they would do is to the personalization. It was good personalization. Hey, Nolan, I see we got some common connections. I see we both know such and such and this person. How do you know Ali Mirza? I met Ali Mirza at this marketing conference. I was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And figuring that out, and I applied it to one of my first clients. And in this case, there's someone at Southwest Airlines, and then they had a mutual connection that had passed away. It's like, how did you know him? Well, you know, he was a great guy. I'll miss him. And this was someone he had reached out to several times and hadn't received any response. And then because he put that in there, and in this case, what it is, you just have a blurb about the mutual connection, or a blurb about the common industry, so that you don't have to manually personalize each message, but you can segment that into something that you can still scale with just a little bit of manual effort.
Got it. Makes sense. So two sort of mistakes we discussed. Number one was how people are like doing the automation of the LinkedIn messages, and number two, the copywriting of when people send the cold emails, they're still it's still I'm yet to see. I'm like you. I get so many emails like this, pitches, and if you were to ask me, hey Ali, have you gotten any that was good? I can't pick any. So I think that's how bad the mistakes people are making. It really comes down to the qualifying the prospect that you want to reach out to, and making sure it's really not about you, it's about them, right? And then also making it personal. Now, let me ask you this. It's a question. Because there are two things. They're using automation, and then second thing is using automation the right way, right? So because there's some people, they're like, hey, automation is evil, don't even use automation. I fall into the second group. I say my kind of philosophy is do use automation, but in the right way. Because when you do it right, automation is a tool, and it really depends how you use that tool. So what are your thoughts on that as far as the automation in general? Is it good or bad? Do you recommend people do it, or do you recommend people mostly stay manual, away from automation? What do you think?
Well, I'm all for automation, and the reason is that sometimes I've written out a well detailed email and it never got responded to. So it's
Mm,
and the prime and why do you use automation? It's to take care of operational,
mm,
and the philosophy is ADO: automate, delegate, outsource. So
also.
try to try not to be the bottleneck for your own job or whatever your role is. And
Mm,
so, as far as how to do it properly, in this case, for cold email, I want to send 100 emails a day.
mm,
So so it's better to automate that. That doesn't mean you can't personalize or inspect things, but it's kind of like it's like running a farm. Like you'd have a sprinkler system that goes off, but you can still go out and check on stuff.
mm,
Sales, that's the analogy for that is more akin to hunting and trapping or fishing.
mm, mhm,
For marketing, it's typically regarded as a farm, particularly for inbound, because
mm,
that comes in like a lead comes to your website, signs up for your list, send an autoresponder. Of course, that should be automated. You have
yep,
a
yep,
welcome sequence. You have an onboarding. Where the manual
mm,
thing comes in is the things where you'll get a return on your effort, on your
mm,
energy,
on the
because
energy.
there's a big debate about scale. Everyone's worried about what will scale and what won't scale. Uh,
Mm,
you know, obviously, try to scale, but when it doesn't scale, like an appointment or a phone call,
mhm,
particularly for customer service, you have to a lot of, and that's kind of what's made me become better at marketing is talking to not only industry peers but also potential customers and seeing what their problems are and how they're different than my assumptions.
got it, got it, got it. Makes sense. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about, Nolan, today is, so tell us about like Rufasta, like how I know it's focused for like B2B, lead gen, email capture, or like outreach, but how would you describe Rufasta to people?
It's a sales prospect form, and one analogy is to think to the old gold rush.
Mhm,
You know, almost 200 years ago today is you had prospectors. Okay, I want to check out this mine for gold, or if it's gold or oil or whatever that natural resource is. Uh,
mhm,
in our market, particularly at the B2B level, there's gold. You're 3 feet away from gold these days.
yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
20, 30 years ago, you would have a list of phone numbers, and you would do it that
mm,
way. You go to meetings, you do networking, and you'd have a Rolodex basically, and you'd use
mm,
that. This just allows you to scale and uh, automate. Now you still need to know what you're searching for. You
mm,
need to have a clear idea about what markets you want to go at, what accounts or companies you want to go after. But basically, once you have the domain, once you have the
mhm,
domain name, then find someone's email. One their email, then you can leverage outbound cadences. And the thing,
mm,
and that's the other. It's not really a mistake, but people don't. They underestimate the power of follow ups, and they don't follow up
mm,
effectively. They do something, and this is why LinkedIn automation is so bad, because people try to follow up with me when it's clear
mm,
they're not realizing the situation. It's like I didn't
yeah, yeah,
respond to your last 3 messages,
yeah,
and it's clear you're not. It's not about me; it's about you trying to get a
yep,
response. So uh, and that's something we avoid because um, in our tool, because we focus email first, and you use
mhm,
LinkedIn as a way to research and try to map
mm,
out things, particularly with Sales Navigator, because you can save
mm,
searches, you can have teams look at things, you save a company, and then you want to go after a job title at that. And so our firm helps people do that, and we offer a fair rate for unlimited lead exports. We don't use a credit system like our competitors do.
oh, that's so cool. And do mention the link as well, or the URL.
Yeah, so people can sign up at Wufasta. That's
Mhm.
WUFASTA.co. They can sign up for a 2 week trial, and that includes 200 leads exports, and that should be more than enough time to see if it'll be fruitful for them or not.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nolan, for coming on the show today.
And thanks for having me. Hopefully viewers learn something.